what lies beyond fear? It's a huge question. It's a 24, 25, whatever number you want to put on it, $1 million question. It seems that everybody here today is kind of examining that question and looking for answers. You know, B.F. Skinner would say that we have an illusion of decisions, that we have an illusion of free will, that all of our behaviors and everything that we do is predetermined, that every behavior that we engage in, every response, every decision we make has been predetermined by every behavior that we've engaged in before. So what I did yesterday, what I did the day before, what I do tomorrow has all been predetermined for me. That also involves fear and our fear-based decision making. So let's examine how we move past fear. How do we get there? And moving past fear means becoming curious as to what lies beyond fear and how do we get there. A lot of people talk about, let's get curious, let's find out what happens when we get curious. It's not as easy as it may seem. It has to do with fixing things and changing our mindset. Because if it was that easy, we would all be doing it so quickly. If it was just as easy as saying, I'm going to be curious, I'm going to change my mind, I'm going to go out and get it, I'm going to run this race, I'm going to finish this race, I'm going to change my job, then why aren't we all doing it? Why aren't we all just getting up and running 100 miles? Why aren't we all just getting up and starting our own businesses? It's not as easy as just saying, I'm going to get curious tomorrow. It's about laying a foundation and setting that path and going forwards and doing it. So mindset is what separates the best from the rest, right? You'll hear a lot of people talk about mindset and setting those strategies to improve mindset. But what does that mean? Okay, so B.F. Skinner says that free will does not exist, that we are predetermined in what we do, but it doesn't mean that we can't change our path. Right? So every behavior has a consequence. We can reinforce those consequences and increase the likelihood of a behavior occurring, or we can punish those behaviors and we can decrease the likelihood of those behaviors occurring. So if I live my life in fear and I engage in fear-based decision-making and fear-based behaviors, I run from fear, I run from challenges, I run from risks. All that does is make sure that I reinforce fear-based decisions. If every time I take a step towards a risk, I take a step in a race, and I go, you know what, that's too painful, I'm quitting. Or that effort is too hard, I'm stopping. Then we reinforce that same behavior to happen again and again. But if I say, you know what, this time, I choose to push through. I choose to go through this, and I choose to push through the pain and see what happens. That's making the choice to become curious and find out what happens next and to set that mindset. And that's when we start to see what happens and to create change. Nothing I'm saying is mind-shattering. This is not revolutionary. This is stuff we know. You have to set up steps to reinforce the behavior, to create those habits that become life-changing. But if we don't get out of our comfort zone and we don't say, I'm going to make this step and I'm going to go through it, I'm going to experience those hard, those difficult, those scary parts, then you just create that same pattern and continue to live through it. So what is curiosity? Curiosity is nothing more than the same opposite side of the same coin to fear. We like to think that curiosity is way over here and fear over here. But you know what? It's right here. It's on peanut butter and jelly. It's It's right there. It's opposite sides of that same coin. And to get to curiosity, we have to step over through fear. And that's what I did. I'm going to tell you a story of what happened and how I got to where I am. There's a few stories. I like to tell stories. I'm a little bit of a storyteller. My father always told me, don't let embellishments in the way of good storytelling, but I'll try to stay on the path of true storytelling here. When I was a little kid, my parents brought my brother and I out to the Everglades for our first trip. My mom said, hey, why don't you take a photo with this statue of an alligator down here on this nice path? I said, you mean this statue of this alligator with its mouth open that looks kind of leathery? My mom said, yeah, that statue right there. Great. I'm like, all right. What do I know? It was from New York. My brother and I crouched down, and we got real close, and we took a picture of this statue in the Everglades of an alligator. You might be familiar with Shark Valley. I've been back to Shark Valley. There are no statues of alligators in Shark Valley. We took the tram later on with my family and come to find out that, yes, there are no statues, and that alligator was no longer there on that boardwalk later on, and that alligators do enjoy sunbathing with their mouths open wide and will dry out and not move. From that moment on, I have what we will call a very healthy fear of alligators. It has gone with me my entire life. I mean, I have had dreams about alligators in the sewers in New York. And my husband and I now later on moved to Florida, and I become an ultrarunner, and that's another story. And I decide that I would like to confront my fear of alligators, but also I'd like to get curious about some of these races that are being run throughout the natural areas of Florida. And there's one race in particular called Just Survive that runs from the beach nearby in Hope Sound all the way to Lake Okeechobee and back, and it runs on the Florida Trail. And presumably, there are many gators along the way. And you have to self-crew yourself, and it's roughly 125 miles through this swamp. And I said, you know what? This is it. You either put yourself in this situation and get over this fear and try to experience something new and find out what you can about yourself. What's the worst thing you can happen? You lose a limb, 2, maybe die via alligator. I don't know. That's pretty bad. Or you survive and you get a really cool buckle out of it and you get a great story. I have lots of friends, and you find a little something or two about yourself, and that's wonderful. But you don't give up, and you give it a fighting chance, and you experience it, and you make that choice to step through and experience something, even though it's very frightening. And I'll tell you what, I lost a lot of sleep the night before, dreaming about sleeping and falling asleep on alligators and crossing land and seeing alligators. And the race director at one point during the race told me, hey, on the bank, when you go up about 20 feet, there'll be an alligator. I said, no, thank you. But I put myself in this position, ran the race, came through. Now I have a massive alligator tattoo on my arm to remind myself that I can do this, that I put myself in that position, and I'm all okay, and I have all my limbs and all my fingers and all my toes. But I made that choice, and I continue to make choices that scare myself to my core. And that is when you start to see it's two sides to the same coin. Otherwise, you live in fear of stagnation. If you can't make choices that propel you forward, you consistently live without moving forward, and you stay where you are in your small little box. So, as a career choice, I became a board-certified behavior analyst. We work with human behavior. So as a board-certified behavior analyst, I know a thing or two about motivation, about effort, what makes people do what they do. And I got to a certain point in my career that I was very high up in a national company, pretty much as high as I could go, and could sit there very comfortably for as long as I want. And that's it. And I said, well, what if I had a little bit, what if I owned my own company? What if I took control? What if I took the reins? What if I got curious and I became a coach? What if I did something with this degree that's not typical for what we do as a behavior analyst? Now, I am the sole coach of ultra running that's a behavior analyst that I know of, not only in the United States, but across the world. So what did I do? I took a leap, and I just explored curiosity to take that step and say, hey, what could I possibly do? It was frightening. I might be in debt. But again, I didn't live in stagnation. And what I learned about that takes me in the next step and the next step. And every time I do this, it reinforces the next behavior and the next choice that I make. Tell you another story. So this past summer, I went and ran the Tahoe 200. It's a race in the mountains of Tahoe. I now live in South Florida. We train in what they call poor man's altitude. It's humidity. And I do what all of us Florida ultra runners do, and I train for mountains by doing bridge reboots. Don't laugh at the cumulative gain of 350 feet over 4 hours. I've worked very hard for that. But I don't let that limit myself, right? That's part of this. Again, a small step towards yes. So then I show up on that starting line. I know I put the best work in that I possibly can. And I start running. About 116 miles into that race, I could hear my breath wheezing in my chest. I was coughing heavily, coughing up all sorts of fun things. And I got to a point where I absolutely could not move on. Couldn't eat. I kept telling my crew that my drinks tasted like soap. I was throwing up as much as anybody could. And I begged and I cried to stop. And I sat at an aid station along with my crew. And they said, we're going to give you a moment. And you're going to make a decision. And this decision is based on how you feel and what you want to do. You did all this work to get here. And I stopped and I just thought. It was my decision. We're in the middle of Lake Tahoe in the mountains. Every decision under the sun, every choice was mine. I could stop, drive 40 minutes, be in a bed, take a shower, not be wheezing, not be throwing up. It was that easy. They left me alone. I had a few choice words, got my pack back on, grabbed my pacer that was running with me, and we headed out, and we kept on running. Never turned back. And 116 more miles, I ran faster the rest of that race to the finish line than I did the first half. And that choice was mine. And that's the thing, it's like failure is not the mistake. The real mistake in life is to stop trying. And that's the point of curiosity. Right? We're curious about what lies beyond. I learned more about myself in the next 116 miles of that race and who I am and what I'm capable of under those conditions than I ever would have learned had I stopped, gone back to the Airbnb, showered, and cozied up. I had every excuse in my head to stop. Oh, my stomach hurts. Oh, that person already dropped. The leader of the race dropped. 20 other leaders of the races dropped. But then I found myself stronger, more powerful, and more willful than ever. And that is a lesson that you can never take away from me. I've run other races, other 200s, that I had no problems during, that I was so happy. I ran happy the entire time and comfortably. Great, I can take away that, but I learned more from pushing through that pain and that fear and that awful feelings and not stopping about myself than I could ever have learned. So failure is not the mistake. The real mistake is to stop trying. I tell that to every person I coach, any person I talk to in leadership. You take a step forwards and you try. And again, for every behavior, you can reinforce that behavior or you can punish that behavior. So if you take a step forwards and you move through pain and you move through fear, you're reinforcing that action and it becomes easier the next time you do it. If you say, you know what, it hurts too much, I'm too scared, it costs too much, what will my friends say? What will my pastor say? What will my rabbi say? You're stepping back. And you lose an opportunity for learning. And you lose an opportunity to confront fear and confront change. And you put yourself right back into that moment of stagnation. So what is the point of it all? Get curious. Stare fear in its face. Take a moment and go, what is it that I'm truly scared of? What is it that I want to find out about myself? What can I get curious about? Is it work? Is it business? Is it life? Is it sports? What is it? How can I find out more about myself and what can I do? And what can I do that's a small step through fear into curiosity that gives me that opportunity to not make the mistake, right? So don't be afraid to fail. Just give it a try. Thank you.